Now then, Vinyl Monkey again, the letter O, on the 31st of May, which happens to be, coincidentally, my birthday. So, and not only an exciting day for me, not really, from that point of view, but also because we're going to a gig later this evening, so really looking forward to that. So before we get on to the letter O, and because it's my birthday, I got a couple of albums for my birthday today. I just want to quickly flag them up. The first one, Van Morrison's new one, latest record project, volume 1. Triple album, 28 songs. Looking forward to giving that a really good listening to later on. It's my 42nd, as I say, Van Morrison album, and it's his 42nd album as well. And if anybody is cruel and nasty, a bit like me, you might like to read reviews where the reviewer cuts the artist to pieces. And if you like that, then look up Alex Petridis's review of this album in The Guardian from a couple of weeks ago, where he absolutely tears into Van Morrison big style. But very, very well written. I don't know why I prefer reading that type of review to those that are gushing about something. I don't know what that says about me or human nature generally even, but anyway, have a look at it. But this might feature in a future edition of this somewhere down the line after we've got through the alphabet. But that's Van's latest record project, volume 1. Looking at the record titles, I think Petridis might have a point. They do look like this could be Van at his most cynical and perhaps even paranoid, but we'll wait and see. I'll give it a go. The other album I got for my birthday was just an hour ago or so. My partner's niece Sarah popped round and was very, very kind to buy me an album, and by total coincidence it begins with the letter O. This is Will Oldham's Songs of Love and Horror. I've only played the first track. This is from 2018, and it's Will Oldham essentially doing some of his back catalogue, just accompanying himself on acoustic guitar. But the first track, stunning, showcasing his voice particularly, as which he's not known especially for his voice, but I think he's got a really distinctive singing voice, and I'm looking forward to listening to the rest of that. Will Oldham, Songs of Love and Horror from 2018. And then on to the ones I'd originally picked out under the letter O. The first one is from 1968, and this is the OJs, Full of Soul. The OJs were named after a DJ from their home state of Ohio called Eddie OJ, apparently, and they formed actually in the year I was born, 1958. So this album was 10 years after that. But most of you will probably know the OJs from their singles in the early 70s, 72, 73 sort of time. Soul Train and Love Train, yeah, Get on the Train, Love Train, and Backstabbers, of course. And at that point they were a three-piece. I was going to show the other OJ's album I've got, Travelling at the Speed of Thought, which shows them as a three-piece and showcases that big Philadelphia sound that they're associated with, because they joined the Philadelphia label in 72. Kenneth Gamble and Leon Huff, the legendary, brilliant songwriters and producers, had been, responsible for the OJ's main sort of chart success. But this predates that. This is a very different sound. It's very 1960s. It even sounds a bit like the early mid-60s. But great songs on here. Lipstick Tracers was a bit of a minor hit for them. Oh How You Hurt Me, beautiful harmonies and guitar sound. Hold On, Lonely Drifter, some lovely songs on that. A lovely atmospheric 60s album, and I'm just a sucker for these sort of boy bands, soul boy bands I suppose you would call them. So that's the OJs, Full of Soul from 1968. The next one was a real landmark album. This album allegedly paved the way for a lot of the music that I've enjoyed over the last 20 years or so, the sort of new country or alternative country music. And this is Wanted by the Outlaws from 1976. And the Outlaws in this instance were country stars Waylon Jennings, Willie Nelson, Jesse Coulter and Tom Paul Glaser. And these were people they'd been in the country scene. Willie Nelson was already a renowned songwriter. Waylon Jennings had been around for quite some time, as had Tom Paul Glaser. Jesse Coulter was an emerging singer who also happened to be Waylon Jennings' partner. And these were people who were frustrated by the constraints and the sort of conservative nature of country and western music at that time, and they wanted to break new ground and expand both lyrically, musically, the sort of the material that they wanted to do, and so they came together and produced this album, and it really crossed over to a much wider audience, particularly to a rock audience. You can see here perhaps the sort of long hair and beards, well, not with Jessie Coulter, she hasn't got a beard, but the rest of them sort of look a bit more like rock stars or hippie-ish than maybe the straight-laced image of country singers at that time. And this album, it's essentially a couple of songs by each of these four, then with a couple of duets by Waylon and Willie, who didn't actually come together. They recorded them separately, but some really good songs on it. I love the opening song by Waylon Jennings, My Heroes Have Always Been Cowboys. There's a great cover of Suspicious Minds, Waylon Jennings singing with Jessie Coulter. It's a lovely cover of that great song made famous by Elvis. And then, well, they're all good songs, but I love Me and Paul by Willie Nelson on side 2, which is about the frustrations of him and his drummer Paul English when they were touring America, and his frustrations with America as a country, sort of getting picked on because they look different, and his frustrations with the Nashville country scene as well. So landmark album, really nice to listen to. That's Wanted by the Outlaws, 1976. The next one, what a band, The Only Ones, what a brilliant band. This is their self-titled debut album from 1978. The Only Ones, the singer Peter Perrett, singer-songwriter, and if you're not familiar with The Only Ones generally, you might have heard of their biggest hit single, Another Girl, Another Planet, which features as the second track on this album. The album kicks off with another great track, The Whole of the Law, but there are 10 tracks on here, all very, very nice. The Only Ones were sort of categorised as punk, but they were much more than that. They were far too musically and lyrically literate to be just categorised in the punk sort of genre, but great songwriters. But unfortunately they burnt out very quickly. By their third album, a couple of years after this, they'd imploded, largely due to addiction issues, mainly heroin, I understand. And then they just disappeared off the radar. But they did reform in the early 2000s, and I was lucky enough to see them in York in, I don't know, about 2005, something like that, maybe 6. And it was a brilliant concert, absolutely superb. They've just got, their songs are so strong, and their playing was brilliant. But at that time, I wouldn't have given the singer Peter Perrett 6 months or a year to live. He looked so thin and so frail, and he must be about my age, but he looked 20 years older, and he looked at death's door. But happily, he tackled his addictions sometime after that, and has regained health. And in the last few years, 3 or 4 years, he's produced a couple of outstanding albums. We might even, if I go on up 100p, they're that good. But definitely give this a listen. if you haven't heard it before, pick out the single because it's just a brilliant track, Another Girl, Another Planet. That's the only ones from 1978. And then the last album for today, I'm going to take it out of this plastic so you can see it properly. This person is an artist who I just have so much admiration for, and I think she is one of the most beautiful people in the world, and I use the word beautiful in all of its senses, but this is Season of Glass by Yoko Ono. The album cover itself, it sends shivers down my spine just to look at the album cover. I mean, on its own, as a still life photograph, that would be an outstanding album cover with a pair of glasses and half a glass of water on a windowsill with Central Park sort of blurred out in the background and reflected through the glasses. But of course they're not just any old glasses or any old windowsill. This is Yoko Ono's flat. This is just after John had been killed. The album came out just 6 months after, so she'd written this in the immediate aftermath of witnessing her husband's murder, and these blood and mud spattered glasses she picked them up from the floor after John had been shot, and it's just, yeah, hairs on the back of my neck are standing up as I'm saying this. And I don't know whether that's because Yoko and John Lennon lived there, or expressed their love so sort of publicly, and we were able to sort of see some of that and access some of that. I don't know why, but this one just makes me feel so strongly. But of course, Yoko Ono was an acknowledged artist, conceptual artist, performance artist long before she met John Lennon. She was already established. She'd done some major pieces. She'd introduced a real feminist perspective to conceptual art through works like Grapefruit and Cut Piece, where she invited the audience to come up with scissors and cut pieces of her clothing away. Very, very profound and challenging pieces of art. And then there was a recorded art, of course, which I found difficult, the screeching and screaming. I think I can sort of get what she was trying to get at, but very difficult to listen to. But this album is not like that. It's very accessible, it's very moving. Give it a try. Season of Glass, Yoko Ono, from 1981. Okay, so that's the letter O. Hope you might join me next time for the letter P. Cheers.